Alright, in this video I want to talk about foul language and cuss words, and before I do, I just wanted to put this here and say that you need maturity if you're going to watch this video, because if you're going to get worked up and make a mountain out of a molehill just because you heard a word or two that you didn't like, uh, then don't watch, okay? It's as simple as that. If you're gonna complain about it, I'm gonna tell you now, I don't really care. Especially when I'm telling you ahead of time that I'm gonna be talking about foul language and cuss words, and my 2 cents on that. Now, the reason why I'm getting into this video is because recently I've been seeing a lot of talk about it. So I figured I'd make a video about it. I've recently been in some Christian forums on MeWe and such, where people are getting worked up over a word or two that they don't like, and it completely derails conversations. People begin getting into a conversation about a doctrine, and they're working things out, but somebody says a certain word, not necessarily calling somebody a name, but they'll use a certain word, and all of a sudden the conversation's veered off and into nonsense land about this word and using bad language, or what people consider bad language. And then I was just watching a video that had nothing to do with actually using foul language and cuss words, and it ended up talking about it and talked about how there was a poll done with Christians about what do they think about using cuss words. And it was only about 50% of them that thought, using the foul language should never be done. Well, the other portion was like, well, if it happens, it happens. And some group part of it was, it's not a big deal. And I'm going to put my 2 cents on this. Now, the Bible talks about the tongue being basically unruly, and it's lit with the fires of hell, where it blesses God and it curses man. It talks about it as pretty evil, right? And it needs to be tamed, and no man can tame it. And you basically need God to be able to tame it, right? So, with that being said, I think what we learn from scriptures is that we are not to be using language that is like condemning and tearing people down and just digging into them and humiliating them and just lying and manipulating. I think a lot of people do these things, but they don't use foul words and cuss words, so nobody bats an eye. Right? In the church, there's people who are gossiping, they are manipulating each other, they're straight up lying, and you even have the pastors, the priests, the leaders of local churches, and even the heads of entire churches lying and manipulating. And people even know about it. Like you can talk to, just an example, picking on Catholics here, the Pope says that Catholicism and Islam worship the same God, and has been putting together this unity of Catholicism, Judaism, and Islam, calling it Chrislam, and they have a church open in Dubai this year. I don't know if it's already opened, but it's been in the plan for years. And you talk to Catholics about it, and they're like, yeah, that's blasphemy, that's heretical, that's wrong, that's BS. Yet they are just like whatever about it. Yet if I say to those same people a word they don't like, all hell breaks loose. So you can see how this doesn't make any sense. It's a mountain being made out of a molehill, while this mountain is made into a molehill. Right? There's somebody, a heretic, blaspheming. It's a mountain over here, and it's like, no, it's just a molehill, not a big deal. And then somebody says a word, and all of a sudden it's just a little molehill. It's a mountain of a problem. Some nobody like me says a word, and all of a sudden it's a big problem. But then the head of a church says some blaspheming words, and it's not a big deal. So that's where my mind goes, because recently in one of these groups, I posted something in all these groups at the same time. It had to do with after the rapture. And I wanted to make it clear about when I say support the Jews, I actually mean support the two witnesses, the 144,000, the people who were like Jesus, who weren't part of the state power of Israel. They weren't part of the religious leadership of Israel. They were people and just everyday people, even jobless, homeless people, just going around helping people. Those are the Jews you need to be helping out, not the state system, not the religious leader system, which denies Jesus and is looking for some alternate Messiah to come. Right? So I was making a video about that, and in the description of the video that I was posting on in these different forums, I put something along the lines of, yeah, I know most of you don't really give two shits, but there'll be a time where you will, and hopefully this video's still around that you can check it out. And most of the groups were just like, whatever. Like, you know, they don't care. They're not going to watch the video. Some people were like thumbs up or thumbs down. Didn't really engage. But then one administrator or group owner got upset because of the word shit. And I was like, really? And it was like, well, it's my group, my rules. So I go, yeah, okay, I'm not going to keep saying it. I just think it's a dumb thing. I mean, you're getting worked up and upset over the word shit. And I didn't, I'd bleep out the word shit, or I'd say poop or crap. I was like, how come, if I say poop or crap, it's not a big deal? And, the person didn't want to engage. They would talk to me, but they wouldn't engage that. Because that's how I see it, is like, if I can say poop, I can say crap, and nobody says anything, how come I can't say shit? If you want to tell me that's a foul word and it's a cuss word, you need to explain to me how it is. Because I can say poop, crap, turd, all these things, and it's just whatever. But if I say shit, all of a sudden, it's a big deal. It's worse than me claiming we all worship the same God. I could go claim that I'm Jesus and I'm God, and people would just be like, whatever. But then if I said something like, I'm the shit, some of these people would get worked up and bent out of shape. And it got to the point where I got kicked out of the group because I said poop. I was like, so if I say, if I'm using poop, you got a problem with that? And the fellow was like, oh, you made your decision. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I just said poop. I don't give a poop. And he kicked me out of the group and blocked me. And I was just like, really? You're over word. It's not even the word you don't like. I'm just saying poop because you don't like the word shit. And I was just making trying to make the point. It's not a big deal. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. But some of these people, once you talk about it, how they're making a mountain out of a molehill, all of a sudden they'll make a bigger mountain. They'll make a volcano out of that. And, yeah, shit hits the fan. But if you lack the maturity to hear the word shit without getting freaked out, I think there's something wrong with you because of everything that's going on in the world. The politicians lie and manipulate you, and it's like, whatever. The religious leadership lies and manipulates you. Whatever. These people cover up crimes. Whether it's Catholic or Protestant or the government, cover up pedophilia, murders, rapes, sexual abuse, money laundering, all this stuff with their words, and it's a whatever. But then if they used a cuss word, then you guys would get worked up. If they said shit, if they said ass, bitch, especially if they say a word here, I'm actually against this word because it's kind of is a cuss, which is fuck. That one, oh, holy cow. That person could have told you the whole truth and nothing but the truth, but they said the word fuck and you tossed them out. Somebody could lie to you and manipulate you, but never say a bad word, and you basically praise them and not care. Even if you know they're lying and they're bullshitting. Well, they're nice, and they didn't say a cuss word. There's something wrong with you. There really is. Because these people get worked up out of things. So before I move on, I'm just going to say uh, that there's words that I don't think are actually cusses, such as shit. Unless you can explain to me how shit is a cuss word, how it's different than saying crap or poop, then, I will recant and admit I'm wrong. Ass, because I can say butt or buttocks, tush, rear end, but if I say ass, all of a sudden it's a problem. Like even when you call somebody, you can call somebody a butthole, and some people might even think that's funny, like that's weird, butthole. But if you say asshole, now it's a problem. It's like, why was it funny for butthole, but now asshole is wrong? It's the same thing, literally no difference, right? So if you can explain to me how ass is different from saying butt, or asshole different from saying butthole, I will recant. Another word would be something I don't really use, but I don't see it as a cuss, is if you say bitch, which just means female dog. Because there's Christians who will call unbelievers pigs and dogs and call them fools because God calls them fools. But if you say they're a bitch, all of a sudden it's a problem. But if you said a female dog, it's just like, oh, maybe it's like you're rude. But if you just said bitch, then there's a problem. And it's weird how just some little word like that, saying shit, ass, bitch, everybody's been out of shape and they ignored everything you said and they just focus on that word, and now that's the only thing they can focus on, and they're going to go on a crusade against you to make sure you can never talk again. It's insane how ridiculous it is. Now, here, I'm just going to use something like this um, to show an example of maturity, but then things that are not cuss words, but then some things that would be, right? Like a lot of things here, I don't see anything here that's really a cuss word. You can use these things to talk about things in a perverted manner, yes, but even Jesus, he talked about hell, people going to hell. Hell is not a cuss word, but I know some people, like you said, hell. It's like, yeah, hell's a place that people go to. Jesus talked about hell. You gonna get on Jesus for saying hell? He even referred to a Gentile woman as a bitch. When she came to have her daughter healed, he said, I'm only on to the lost sheep of Israel. I'm not going to feed the food given to Israel to a dog, right? And we think nothing of that. But if somebody says you're a bitch and you're going to hell, it's a big deal because of the words they used. If they said you're a sinner and you're not going to heaven, it's okay. It's the way you word it. Even though it's the truth. Is I can't get my mind around it. Like a lot of things here, I don't know why any of this stuff is considered a cuss word. Like anus, bastard, semen, boob. I mean, none of this here is a cuss word. You could take any of these words and talk about something foul. You could take words that people don't consider to be cuss words and talk about really disgusting things and make really perverted jokes. But some people will just bypass that because you didn't say the certain bad words. Right? I'm going to go over here. Now, I will admit that there's words that have no real meaning that aren't really necessary to put into language, like fuck. There's actually all kinds of different meanings to that I get why it's considered a cuss word, right? I mean, you don't want to sit there talking about sexual things, which is pretty much what it means in front of children, right? But if I can say butt, if I can say crap and poop and turd in front of a child, then I should be able to say ass and shit. If I can say, hey, that's a female dog, or that person's a dog in front of a child, then I should be able to say that's a bitch. But I get not talking about sexual things like fuck, fucking, even talking about sex without using dirty words in front of a child and stuff. So I should make that as a good point. If you can say these things in front of children and it's not a big deal, then you should be able to say the other version of the word. Unless you can come up with a reason, like I said, how saying ass is different from butt, how shit is different from crap, how bitch is different from female dog. You can explain that to me, that's fine. Then I will recant. But if you can talk about these things in front of a child and it's not a big deal, then why are we making a big deal about this? We're adults. It's stupid. Now, even adults, they don't like talking about sexual things in front of other adults. So it's definitely one of those things you do with a child who doesn't really grasp it, and you don't know the weird things that are going on in their developing mind. So it's not something I would imagine you'd want to get into uh, in front of a child. So I get why saying those things would be deemed inappropriate. But yeah, some of these things are just is weird. Like I said, you need maturity to deal with these things. And then there's racial things, racial words. I get that, like we got over here, because you're being, racist. If somebody is an asshole, they're an asshole. Whether they're black, white, yellow, brown, Asian, Hispanic, whatever they are, they're an asshole. But if you resort to calling them by a racial slur, that's racist. Why not just talk about their character defects? Pretend everybody you're talking to is the same race as you are and bash them in the way that needs to be bashed, right? Or I should say rebuke, right? But I think I summed that up. Hopefully you got the maturity to go through this. Um, but yeah, that's it. I imagine most of the people that need to be reached with something like this will not even get this far into the video. They probably still stayed here. But you see, that's why I had this here. Maturity is reached the day we don't need to be lied to about anything. And the good portion of people need the government to lie to them and the religious leaders to lie to them because it makes them feel good and comfortable, because they can't handle reality. They can't handle not being comfortable. They can't handle being in a stressful situation where things aren't, I don't even want to say perfect, but things aren't okay. Like the government's jacked up. And it's just a bunch of people trying to suck money out of you and manipulate you into doing things for them, such as, wars, where you die for their causes, and other such things. And you've got religions that back them up and support them and do the same thing, trying to suck up your money and getting you to support the government. Because you see that the government acts as the father, the churches act as the mother, right? And the mother supporting the father. And because of that, the father supports the mother. Tax exempt stuff and what have you. So, yeah, you get all this manipulation and being lied to because people don't like the reality that the government is doing things to manipulate them, to control them, and enslave them, and use them to fight wars that they're not going to fight themselves. And the religion does the same thing. But the religion also tells them that they're good people and they're going to heaven just because they're good in God's love, and He would never send anybody to hell. People need that because they lack maturity. They're child adults, man children, woman children. And it's just strange how a lot of these people they hide behind different things to prove they are mature adults. Like, I went to college, I got a job and a career, I started a family, I got my house, I got a mortgage, I paying my bills. I'm a mature adult. But then when you're confronted with the truth and reality of things, you get angry, you dismiss it, you spit on it, you mock it. All these things come to you where you can't handle reality, which shows that you're not a mature adult. You're just doing all these outward things to deceive yourself into thinking that you are a mature adult, that you can handle things. When in reality, if you were, you would see the truth, accept the truth, and do something about it, which may not be comfortable, which may not be socially acceptable, like coming out of the government system and getting rid of the Social Security card and going under common law, and where you actually have to support yourself and not be a slave to the system, and that you would come out of the churches and stop feeding into those 501c3 organizations that are just telling you what the government allows them to tell you, and all these other such things. You'd come out of the world like Jesus wants you to do, like the Bible tells you to do. You stand up and you would rely on God instead of the government. And you see, what a lot of people do is they look, God becomes their father. Not God becomes their father. The government becomes their father and becomes their God. And whenever they want something or need something, they petition and go to the government. They're not going to God. They hide behind that they're going to God. But in everything they say and do, they're actually supporting the government as if it's their God. And it's crazy. Just to end it, it's kind of like The Matrix, or the movie. They say a lot of these people are plugged in and they're dependent on the system. So even though you're trying to help people, try to pull them out of the system, they're hopelessly dependent on it because they're immature, fearful. They don't have God in their life, so they don't have that faith built up that no matter what happens, God's going to take care of them. That they couldn't just be this jobless, homeless guy or gal that just leaves and they just trust God. They can't do that, so they are hopelessly dependent on the system, which would be in this case the government and the religions that are 501c3 organizations, which is basically all the churches, Christian or not. And kind of veering off track a little bit, but it just ties into what I'm saying here. We got all these big problems, but we spend so much time on something stupid, like the word shit. And here I am, kind of doing the same thing, but trying to get you off of wasting your time on that. Just like somebody making a video getting you to stop wasting time on the shit music of the world and its entertainment with the movies and the sports. You have your little bit of time in that, but don't let it take control of you. Don't let it basically be a need that you can't live without. Right? Like if you don't have your music or your entertainment of some kind through the day, that you're grumpy and it's just a shit day and you hate everything and everybody because of that. And then that shows that it's a drug and it controls you, that it's your life. Right? It's everything with moderation. But kind of going off track, rambling on here, so I'm just going to cut this off here. Thanks for watching and take care.